Hello, good day. My name is Uzair Ahmad Muazzam bin Sinin, matrix number 73867 from the Engineering and Manufacturing Faculty of UNIMAS, and I am the first year student. Uh, now, today I'm going to explain to you the applications of thermodynamics in our daily lives. Today, my example for you is a car or a car engine. Now, before proceeding into explaining which component applies thermodynamics laws in the car, I'm going to simply tell you or explain to you what are the laws of thermodynamics. Now, there are three laws of thermodynamics, which is the zeroth law, the first law of thermodynamics, and the second law of thermodynamics. The zeroth law of thermodynamics states that if two bodies are in thermal equilibrium with a third body, they are all in thermal equilibrium. As simple as that. Now, for the first law of thermodynamics is energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but only and only can be converted into a different form of energy. For example, heat energy changes to mechanical energy. Moving on is the second law of thermodynamics, which states that entropy of a body or a system will always increase, or much more simply explained, the quality of energy will always decrease and will never be increasing. Now, moving on into the examples of where thermodynamic laws are applied to a car engine. Now, this is an engine bay, and before everything, I am going to show you one of the most basic components of a car bay or a car engine. Now, in a car bay, the most obvious one is this one. The biggest one is the engine block. This is where combustion and pistons move to move the car. Now, this right here, the white one, is the car battery. Now, this car battery will provide electrical energy into the car and into the engine. Inside here somewhere, which some cars show, but unfortunately this car does not, is the radiator, which will cool the engine or the battery or anything, any component in the bay. From the laws of thermodynamics, all three of them are applied in a car engine. Now, the first one, or the zeroth law of thermodynamics, as I said, states that if two bodies are in thermal equilibrium with a third body, all of them are in thermal equilibrium. Now, let's say the car is not turned on and the surroundings are moderately room temperature, maybe. Now, let's say this radiator and the car engine block are in thermal equilibrium or are the same temperature right here. They are said to be in thermal equilibrium. But let's say the engine is also the same temperature as the radiator and the engine. Now, according to the zeroth law of thermodynamics, all three of these bodies, even though they are not directly contacted to each other, they are in thermal equilibrium. Moving on is the first law of thermodynamics, where it states that energy cannot be created and cannot be destroyed, but only and only be converted into another form of energy. The cycle of an engine starts from ignitions of the spark plugs from the battery. Now, as I said, the battery provides electrical energy to the spark plugs inside the engine. Now, I'm going to explain to you very briefly how engines work. Now, first of all, there is fuel injected into the pistons or the engine, and the fuel is compressed into a very pressurized state, and then ignition from the spark plugs will ignite the fuel and cause combustion, pushing the piston down. And while the piston is pushed down, it will go back up again, going to release the products of combustion via the exhaust. Now the pistons are connected to a drive shaft which will spin the tires. It will spin the tires and drive the car forward. Now, from that simple explanation, very simple explanation, we can see how the laws of thermodynamics are applied here. The first law of thermodynamics, which energy cannot be created and or destroyed, but only can be converted. Now, first of all, the battery will provide ignition to the spark plugs in the engine. Now that is electrical energy. Now, as I said, the fuel is already compressed inside the pistons, right? When the ignition occurs by the electrical energy, it will combust the fuel, which will cause chemical energy, the combustion of the fuel. Now, as that is happening, the combustion pushes the piston down. Now we can simply say that the chemical energy has been converted into mechanical energy. As the piston is being pushed down, it is converted to the drive shaft, and the drive shaft drives the car forward. It is as simple as that. Now, moving on to the second law of thermodynamics, which entropy will always increase in a system, or much more simply said, energy will be always decrease in quality. Now, what does that mean? It means that all the energy are not 100% completely converted into the desired energy. Now, let's say if we are in ideal world, in a perfect world, very perfect, all the energy from electrical energy to chemical energy to mechanical energy will completely be converted 100% efficiently. But unfortunately, we are living in the real world. Now, in the real world, there will be loss of energy via the energy conversion. Now, for example, electrical energy is not 100% completely converted into chemical energy. For example, there are impurities in the fuel, or there are incomplete combustion, or the ignitions or the sparks are not complete. Now that means that not all of the electrical energy has been fully 100% converted into the chemical energy. Moving on, from the chemical energy or combustion, it will not 100% be converted into mechanical energy. Now why? After some time, the engine will heat up very, very hot because there are combustions happening inside of it. Now that will cause loss of energy by heat, by convection, where the heat is released into the fluid around it, or air as we know, by convection. If we are living an ideal life, all of that chemical energy will convert into mechanical energy, the pistons going up and down, but unfortunately we are not. And furthermore, the engine which converts mechanical energy to kinetic energy, driving the car forwards, there will also be a loss of energy inside of it, where there are heat in the tires, which will cause loss of energy because the heat is released by convection to the air around it. Now that should be all. Thank you very much.